Thank you for listening. This is Sunshine's Talks, and I have a special guest today. And I just hope you guys enjoy what she has to say just as much as I enjoy talking to her. She is my best friend of over like 15 years. I've known her forever, and I'm just very excited to have her on here today. So I'm going to go ahead and let her take the floor. But again, if you guys like this, go ahead and like, subscribe, and just give me some love. So here's my special guest. Woo!
Woo! Hey, so I'm Kayla. I am Jamie's best friend of 15 years. Um, First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for having me as your first guest. I'm very proud of you and how far you've come. Um, so I am a little background story of me, single mom of three. Um, I currently attend ILC Riverside,
That's right.
and I absolutely love my church. I mean, it is amazing. The people there, the fellowship. It's just a community. It's like a family. It's the best support group that I have ever had in my entire life. But first and foremost, obviously, God is the number one, right?
God is dope.
Well, what's actually pretty cool about it is how I even came to know about ILC was from my aunt who attends there. And she actually facilitates a Be Free program.
Yep.
And it was for Be Free from Addiction, faith-based. And I was, I battled with my addictions. And so, yeah, I joined the program and I went through it. I graduated, and that's how I kind of like started going to ILC, and then it became my church. And then I loved it so much that I wanted Jamie to be a part of it.
Right. And can you, like, for being in that Be Free program, do you think is it just for addictions in regards to like drinking and like smoking? Like, do you think that other people, if they have addictions with like, I know people probably deal with it with like porn, or if they deal with things like where they're a little too obsessed with something like food. In my case, sometimes I have bad self-control, but do you think that'd be something that people, it's not just for drugs and alcohol?
No, honestly, it's be free from anything, anything that you could be bound to. It could be something as little as coffee, like you're addicted to drinking coffee every morning, or maybe, a couple cups a day. That's an addiction. Something as little as, I don't know, maybe even a video game, or, a sport or something. If you're like super addicted and like, that's just
Right.
like, that's all you put your time into, and you don't ever try and make time for anything else. Just anything that you're bound to, that is hindering your relationship with others.
Right. Okay. I love that. Just because I know when I first heard of Be Free, I was like, oh, I have to be like addicted to something. And by addicted, like, oh, I got to be a heroin addict or something like that, And it's definitely not, because I myself have been through the program. So thank you for that, for introducing me to the church. And it's definitely a godsend for sure.
Yes.
So if any of our listeners at home, if you're from the Riverside Inland Empire area, you guys are totally welcome to go. It's usually on Sundays at 12, and
For the women, and then there's also the men's, that's at 12 too, right?
Right. Yes, it's together. So you guys can be free from anything. And I know I will have an episode with the sister we're talking about as well, so she can give a lot more information. But definitely, I could say that program it's a really good program. Like, so thank you for answering that, because I know people at home probably like, what is Be Free? Like, what is this thing she's talking about? Like, is it an AA meeting? Is it, what is this? Like, it's also recognized by the courts. So if you kind of know someone who needs help and you're in the Riverside area, Inland Lighthouse Riverside would absolutely, we would love to have you guys, because
Yes.
we have to make disciples and we want to show God's love through that. So is there, like, what else can you, tell the viewers at home, or I guess the listeners, like a little bit about yourself in regards to who you are, who is Kayla?
So, let's see. My dad, he passed away when I was 12 years old, and so that kind of, shifted things for me as a person. I was just starting middle school, so it was a really tough time. And then, you know, once he passed away, my mom started attending church, and we started going pretty frequently. But being the like high school student that I was, I wanted to be rebellious. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to, I'm like, and I had my reservations. I was angry with God. I felt like, why would he, because my dad, he was an alcoholic for 10 years, and then he sobered up for 2 years. And so I got him for a good 2 years. He was a really good dad, teaching me how to play basketball, taking me quad riding, just doing things that a dad should do. Yeah. And then we, got into this car accident, and then he was taken from me. So I questioned a lot, like, why is this happening to me? Why would God give me these really good 2 years and then all of a sudden just take it from me? Yeah. But so we started going to church, and then I started getting involved in the youth, and I really liked what I felt there. I just felt, I can say that even though that was, back in the day, that was a different church. It was of the same, faith. And it was healthy for me to go through this while I was grieving. Right. Because I had people to lean on, but that it was more of like a positive influence. And then, things kind of took a turn once I, started getting a little bit older, and I had transferred to a different high school. And I think that's where it got kind of sticky for me. I started drinking, getting involved in the wrong crowd. And I started partying, and I'm not sure how far you want me to go here, but
it's whatever you want to share with our audience, like, because I think already what you're sharing is it's a very strong part of your testimony as who you are as a person. Because not many people, I think when they look at somebody, they're not going to think like, wow, she went through all that. And like, this just is your story. Like, it's your story, however, whatever you want to share, because I know there's going to be people listening to this who are going to just probably relate to you. Because I know you were saying how, well, I was so angry at God, like, why would you do this? Like, and I was thinking, like, there's people out there who ask me, like, well, if God was so good, like, well, why are you in the situation you're in? Right. And like, by you sharing that, like, it just shows that you're human. We're human. And yeah, we think those thoughts, but at the end of the day, like, the things you've been through high school and now, and going to the Be Free program and being at church, like, I know people who probably knew you in high school are going to be like, who's Kayla? Like, that's not Kayla. That's not the Kayla I know. But it's because God has changed you, and for the good, not like, I mean, I don't know if you want to explain more in regards to, like, when you were feeling like, well, why did God do this? Do you still question that now, or are you more?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's a purpose and there's a reason to everything, as to why things happen. And I don't want to particularly say that, like, God did this. I just feel like it was his time. It was my dad's time. And I feel that God calls his strongest warriors, and he wanted my dad at that time. I feel he wanted, so my thing is,
okay, no worries. Okay, so I do have some questions, and by any means, like, if it's too much, just let me know. We could always cut it out. So, can you tell, like, the people at home, is there been a moment in your life that, like, you knew God was real? Like, I don't know, like, something you, like, prayed about and only you prayed about, or, like, is there something in your life that, like, God has shown himself to you? Or is there, like, a moment in your life where you're kind of like, where you were questioning, and then all of a sudden God just did something that you're like, wow, okay, God is real? Like,
well, there was definitely a couple times where I was battling with, an ex-boyfriend of mine and coming, being in and out of church. And I kept battling in my head, should I be with this person or should I not? And I knew in my heart what the answer was, but I didn't want to come to terms with it because, we were going to be having a baby together. And so it was hard for me. But there were numerous times in different preachings, that I felt God was warning me that I needed to get out of the situation and I needed to get out of it fast. And there was one preaching in particular, I can't remember the title of it, but I do know it was Brother Andrew Howard.
Mm.
And
he's a good guy. Love that guy.
And he basically was telling me, if you do not get out of this situation that you're in, there is going to be some serious consequences.
Woo!
And I knew that God was speaking through him to me, because it was just there's no way that how specific he was being, and I can't even remember word for word, but how specific he was being, that he was talking to anybody else in that church. I mean, he could have been, right, but it was just so specific to my situation at that moment. Right. And so I just knew, but guess what? I ignored it. And what do you know? I think it was maybe a month later, I found out I was pregnant. And so that right there just proved to me that God is speaking to you.
Right.
He wants you to listen, and he just wants you to obey. And if you're not going to do so, unfortunately, there's consequences that comes with that.
Right.
With disobedience.
Right.
It's just like being a parent. You know what I mean? With your children, if you sit there and you keep telling your kids, stop doing this, like you tell them, like, stop running, you're gonna slip and fall, and they don't want to listen. Well, then they go and slip and fall. And you're like, well, what did I tell you? You know what I mean? And there's the consequence.
Right.
So, it's just that to me was I felt then that I just knew for a fact, like, God is real and he is talking to you and he loves you. Mm-hmm. He just wants the best for us.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
And if we're going to disobey, then, like I said, there's going to be consequences.
Right. And I love that you kind of like mentioned that, because I like recently just been realizing God doesn't want to hurt us. Like, he will like tell you things, and he'll tell you multiple times, mm-hmm, kind of how you use the example of like with kids, like, hey, I told you to get off that, you're going to hurt yourself. And then God goes, I told you you're going to hurt yourself. Yep. And then it gets to the point where like, then you kind of realize it. And I like really how you talked about obeying, because I don't think people understand that when they're in the faith, but like, oh, God's a forgiving God. Yes, he is. But if you're going to keep mm-hmm. disobeying what he's telling you, that means like, for me, I battled with smoking weed, and when I'm smoking weed and say, oh God, he's going to forgive me, and then pick it up again the mm-hmm. next day, like, at some point it's going to get to the point where I'm going to have consequences.
Right.
And like, it's just, God is a forgiving God. And like, I just, I think of people who they'll talk about how like, they're just like, God isn't real, this is that. But it's like my opinion with that would be like,
how is he not?
Right? Like, I think it's just more of like, they're like, well, I've had someone tell me, like, kind of using science, and they said, well, it's just ironic that happened, or it's ironic this. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because
sure about that?
I'm sure about that. Like, because at the end of the day, there's people who, should we stop it? Sorry. Dude, I should put like a little music right there or something, huh? Just with like I love your testimony, because it's just, you have a lot of good like fruits in it. Like there's things that you've been through that like, I like, from my own perception, I've seen you and you've grown and you're strong and like, I don't know, is there anything you want to add to that? Like,
so one thing too is while I was pregnant with my third child, I did a 52-day fast, and it was a 52-day sugar fast. And in that fast, I had included you in it.
Oh, yeah, I love this.
And it was that you would come to church and that you would be filled with the Holy Ghost. And I think it was a whole year.
No, it was shorter than a year because I came in August and you did this in like December. In November, December.
It was November, yeah. Okay, so
6 months.
So yeah, and but that fast was not in vain. Right. And I mean, there were other things in that fast as well, and all of those things got answered as well. But wow. This was the main one that I was hoping and praying would get answered. And so that's a miracle in itself.
Right. If anyone knows me who's listened to this and who's known me prior to this, before me going to church and getting really in depth with God and him helping me with everything I've been through, I was someone who was like, I was in the LGBT community. I was very convinced about it. I was like, no, girls are only for me. I smoked a lot of weed and I drank quite a bit and I hung out with the wrong types of people. And, my friend here, she was just living her life for God. And it was beautiful. And yeah, she was going through her stuff as well. But the fast really does things. And by her fasting, I guess to tell you guys a little bit, it's crazy because I never wanted to go to church again. I was like, nah, I don't want to go to church. Church, I have way too much church hurt. And so I didn't know that, sorry for the noise, guys, but I don't even think they can hear it because last time this happened, no one can hear it. Anyways, sorry, guys. Sorry, the one person who's listening right now. So I just was having this pull to go to church, and I didn't know she was fasting for me. And when she was fasting, during Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's when all the sweets are out. So the fact that,
and I was pregnant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the fact that she wasn't really eating sweets, I was like, oh, whatever, do your thing, girl. And little did I know that I was part of that fast. And then, fast forward 6 months later, I was really getting a pull to go to church. And I had a friend at the time who was like, oh, go to my church. And I was like, okay, but I missed his church service. And I texted my best friend here and I go, hey, when's your church? And she was like, this time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And she was like, I'm so excited. You're coming. So I came and I wasn't going to go to the front. I went to the front and I got reinstated with the Holy Ghost. And I literally stopped, almost was it a couple, I just kept going to services, any service I could. Mm-hmm. And I haven't stopped since. And now I go religiously. So, if that doesn't prove God's real, what is that? Yep. What does that say? What science can we say about that?
And I mean, also too, my aunt, she had been fasting and praying for me as well, before I had gotten to the Be Free program. And I don't know why, same thing how Jamie just said, I started feeling this pull to go to church again. And I couldn't even explain why, because I wasn't surrounded by people who talk about God, who know God, care, the conversations were just never about God. So it's not like I was being influenced some way, shape, or form. It was just pure, feeling this pull, I feel I want to go to church and I want to be a part of something. And I couldn't figure it out, but I texted my aunt and I said, Auntie, I don't know what it is, but I am just feeling like I really want to go to church. Amen. And mind you, she didn't even know I had an addiction with alcohol. She didn't even know that. And she just so happened to be the one facilitating the program. And I honestly firmly believe that God placed that burden on her heart to facilitate that program because he knew that that would be one way to speak to me to get me out of this addiction. So man, if y'all don't want to say that God's not real, I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry y'all feel that way, but me, from my personal experiences, I know for a fact, I can't deny it. God is real, and he's amazing. He's merciful. He's just so, I don't know. It's great.
He's good. He's merciful. He's amazing. And like, also can you say like within your lifetime, can you look back and you see everything has been like God, like the good and the bad things,
for
like
sure,
shaping who you are.
Yeah, I mean, well, and they say too, praise him even when it's bad. Praise him in the storm.
Right.
I mean, you have to thank God for the good and the bad, because the bad is what helps mold you and shape you into the person that you are.
Wow. Right. Wow. This is so good. Like, so, so for your like, because I know you shared a little bit in the beginning about kind of like how you kind of got into church. Your mom started going to church and stuff, and like, and then you had a falling out of church. Let's just say the backsliders, and then you came back. Is there any advice that you'll have for someone who, if they're going through the same situation as you, like, is there any advice that you have for someone, like, because we don't know who's gonna listen or who's gonna be here to hear this, like, because you are a mom. I'm not a mom, and I can't speak of that, but like, is there advice or anything that you can think of off the top of your head that like you give advice to someone who is going through or has been through some of the situations you've been through in the past couple of years?
I mean, yeah, I would have to just say, just be careful who you surround yourself with, because that's going to be the catalyst of what direction you go in life. Wow. Who you surround yourself with is everything. What you listen to, what you watch. Even, social media is huge right now. And even that is, I don't know. I feel as though like, sorry.
Right. Yeah, so should I just cut that part out then? And then we'll just restart? Okay. So this is Jamie cut out. Now restart. All right, go. Should I just ask you a question? Okay. Has there been a moment in your walk with God that you felt like giving up?
Yes. It's funny that you asked this. This actually happened rather recently, and when these things happen, it's like you don't even want to admit it. You feel ashamed for even having the thoughts, but at the end of the day, thoughts are just thoughts, right? Well, recently I was just feeling, being a mom of 3, I get very overwhelmed, and it is really difficult, getting everybody ready all the time, and myself, and being a full-time working mom, and it's just it is a lot on my plate. And well, anyways, I was really feeling like I can't do this anymore. Like I'm so over it. I just give up, and I would miss, a Sunday service or something, because unfortunately I would, let the devil win. And the devil, literally, I promise you, the devil will try you the hardest on Sundays and Tuesdays.
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, Sundays and whatever midweek day that the church has.
Right.
But anytime you try and do something else, you know what I mean? Like, you want to go hang out with a friend, or you want to go, that always works out. But if you're trying to go to church, that always gets interrupted somehow. Well, anyways, I was feeling like I just didn't want to go anymore. I'm just over it. That day when I didn't go, I felt like so horrible. And I feel that God speaks through your children as well. Because I had my son asking me, Mommy, why aren't we going to church? I want to go to church. And I felt so bad. I just felt horrible. And I just recently had a friend tell me, he asked me, do you ever feel like you want to give up? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, don't.
Wow.
Don't give up.
Wow.
And that right there, I felt was God speaking through him as well, because I literally had just went through it. I had just went through the feeling of wanting to give up. So I'm telling y'all, God is, he is real, and he's here, and he's listening.
Right. Wow. I love that you shared that though, because it's like as someone like who is single and doesn't have like kids or anything, it's like so easy just to be like, I'm gonna give up. Like, what is the point of? What's the point of like going? I know. Oh man. Okay. So literally, what is the point? Like to keep going? Like, why do I keep going? And like in your case, you have your kids, and they're like, well, mom, why aren't we going to church? Like, um, and I guess I'll give my own 2 cents about it. That why does it keep happening during the podcast? I might keep that one in. Like it's crazy because God will speak to you, and we have someone who like had given us advice about like the Bible and like ask God, hey, give me a word, and then you like open the book, like, and then you read something, and that's happened 10 times out of 10 for me, like every time. And I like how you also brought up like, oh, it's funny how like the devil or the enemy will try you on Sundays in whatever midweek service you have, because it's when you're going to go hang out somewhere that's not church, oh, it goes so easy.
Oh yeah.
And like I just think it's just ironic how like so many things will try to stop you to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just by you persevering, like God honors all that. And like segueing into this, like has there been an experience that you've had that you felt like the overwhelmingness love from God? And how was that experience for you, if you have?
I want to say it was probably when...
You don't have to if you don't want to.
No, it's okay.
Aww.
It's all good.
It's part of being raw on this podcast, but at least they can see our faces.
It's probably has to be when my grandma was on her deathbed. And, they say when you pass on that your prayers are still answered. I am living proof of that because my grandma prayed very, very hard for me and my family as well. And I can say that me and my brother, my mom, we are all living for God today. And, but that's when I felt his love the most. We're standing around her bed and she can't even speak English. All she's saying is she's just speaking in tongues. Like, that's it.
Wow.
And she's literally she kept asking, where's Kayla? Where's Kayla? Is Kayla okay? Because at the time,